like you to meet MasterG. So MasterG has an awesome job. He is really well paid, and he has the skills that make sure that he's the most powerful person in a garment factory. He cuts these patterns, which then get cut into fabric, and then thousands, if not lakhs, of pieces get cut from the pattern that MasterG makes. He's a really important man. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about what patterns are before we jump into the rest of the talk. This is a pattern. It's mathematical, it's formulaic, and MasterG is going to cut this out and put it on fabric, which is then going to get cut into multiple pieces of fabric. This skill is extremely important, and it's only taught to men in India. There is a Guru Shishya Parampara. It's an oral tradition which is passed on from one generation to the next. So the father teaches the son, teaches the younger brother, and in every generation, the women, the sisters are left out of this oral tradition. And you're probably wondering, well, if it's just a skill, let's just teach the women, right? Like, why is it so complicated? And you're right. The skill per se is not so complicated, but it's the thought process. It's what's going on in our minds which is complicated. It's how the women in those generations have viewed themselves, and it's how the men in those generations have viewed the women, which makes it so difficult for such a simple thing to be taught to the women. So what we're looking at here is a broken system. And when I graduated Parsons in 2015, and I moved to India, which is where I grew up, I realized that the Silai centers are filled with women, but the MasterGs are all men. And that frustrated me way more than how passionately I felt about launching my fashion line. So I realized that if a good designer can design anything, then might as well design a new system and design curriculum that can look at our minds and question how we think. And we'll get to the clothing. We'll get to designing the clothing as well, but that's going to take a little bit of time. So I launched into designing a training program that would focus on the mind, which was disguised as a training program to make clothes. And we went into slums and villages of Delhi, UP, and Haryana, and we brought women into the classroom to teach them pattern making. And we hired those very ustads to be the teachers in those classrooms, so that they could pass on that knowledge in a safe space where the women could feel like they can learn that skill. But 1 year passed, and nobody wanted to hire these girls. And that was really hard, because we'd worked really hard, and we really wanted these girls to be MasterGs, and we realized that we hadn't yet worked on the mindsets of the employers, because they could only trust a man on the cutting table. They couldn't trust the girls yet. And these are 22-year-old girls, really young, spunky, fierce girls that cut patterns in my factory right now, which is the one right here. So because we realized that no one's going to hire them, we had to set up a factory on our own. So we have India's first all-women garment manufacturing factory in Delhi. Once that happened, we realized, well, if you don't have a brand of your own, then are you really competing? And do you really have the legitimacy and credibility? So we went in last year to launch a fashion line, which is a contemporary women's wear collection by the name of HEIMA. And if there are any German speakers in the room, HEIMA in German means homecoming or belonging, which is essentially what the training centers are, which is what the factory is, which is what the brand is. It's a sense of homecoming for all the women, so that they can be nurtured and they can realize their potential in a space that believes in them unconditionally. And I want to talk a little bit about the training. What is it about the training that makes it so fundamentally crucial to the mindset change? So we told the girls that here's a skirt, here's a simple skirt, but we don't want you to make a simple skirt. We want you to redesign it and reimagine it the way that you want to, the way you see it. So the girls came up with these designs and many more. And then they made their own version of it. And then we asked them to do it with pants and with dresses and with shirts. And over the course of the year, as they were doing this, with so many different silhouettes, we realized that they had started doing this at home, out in the world, in the communities. They were questioning everything. because they had learned to question in a safe space in the classroom. They had learned to unlearn and then learn what they wanted to. And it was here that I realized that the success of the curriculum rang its deepest, because they had started to question. And now we have over 1,000 girls who have the skill to question. Everything that's been taught to them, all the conditioning that they have since they were born, they know how to question that. And that's when we realized that a simple act of becoming a pattern maker or a MasterG can actually help you break so many patterns in your life, and you can become a role model for people who've never seen someone in the role of a MasterG before, and how powerful that can be. A minute ago, I spoke about the brand and the fashion line, and I'd like to tell you a story about where the designs for that collection came from. This is a really familiar image for many cities in India and many other developing countries in the world. What you're looking at in the bottom half of this image is slum dwellings, low-income dwellings. They're connected to wealthy gated communities, if you look at it. They're connected physically, but societal structures keep them disconnected. There's an uneven texture of social fabric. There isn't much interaction. The girls, the women, the future MasterGs come from the bottom half, and they're questioning. So we took an image so strong, and we turned it into an embroidery. We turned it into this vector. And then we started putting it on clothes. We started putting it on dresses, and on coats, and on tops, in different colors, which came from the habitat of these women, the very dwelling. So the blue color you see is actually from the tirpal sheets that cover the homes and protect them from the rain. The gray, the asbestos gray, comes from the asbestos sheets that you see that protect these homes from water and from the sun. The curry orange, whether you're on this side or on the other, everyone is cooking the same food, the same curry that we all cook in our homes. And the jamun, which is a fresh, lush fruit you'll find on the street, on the hawkers, when you walk into these streets. And this is the one that right here is the one actually that I'm wearing, which I designed with one of the girls. Her name is Kehkasha, and she wears a lot of these things, and it was a great experience designing these clothes with her. And all of them, I design most of these products with the girls, and they're a huge collaborative part of this whole process. I just want to leave you with my dream and my hope for all of us in this room, all of us in India right now, that in my lifetime and in my generation, I just want that when you all think of MasterG and the word and the role MasterG, what comes to your mind is not the image I started this presentation with. What I want you to feel and what I want you to see is Anjum and Rajni and Upasna. Thank you.